A Washington, D.C. residential purchase agreement is a legally binding contract between a buyer and a seller to transfer ownership of a home. The document outlines the terms and conditions of the transaction, such as the purchase price, financing terms, closing date, and any contingencies that must be met before the deal is closed. In this video, we'll cover how a residential purchase agreement works, the legal requirements in Washington, D.C., and what you need to create one. We're eForms, the biggest online database for legal documents. Stick around till the end of this video to find an official residential purchase agreement specific to Washington, D.C. First, let's review how does a residential purchase agreement work. A residential purchase agreement initially acts as a written offer from a prospective buyer to the seller of a house. It states how much the buyer is willing to pay for it, how it will be financed, what contingencies must be met before closing the deal, and more. Often after the initial offer, there will be some negotiations between the buyer and the seller before they agree on all parts of the contract. Once an agreement is reached, both parties sign the document, making it legally binding. So, what are the legal requirements in Washington, D.C.? Under district law, the seller is required to provide the buyer with a property disclosure statement detailing any known material defects and conditions of the house before or at the time of executing the agreement. If the disclosure statement is provided after the agreement is executed, the buyer can terminate their offer within 5 days of receiving the statement, and the seller must return their deposit. In addition, under federal law, the seller is required to disclose the property's history with lead-based paints, including any available records related to the inclusion or removal of lead on the property. Now that we know more about how a residential purchase agreement works and what's legally required, here are some things that you should do to make sure the process goes smoothly. Include a mortgage pre-approval letter. A mortgage pre-approval letter is a document from a bank estimating how much it's willing to lend a buyer based on the buyer's credit history, income, debts, and assets. This helps the seller determine whether the buyer is financially credible. Offer an earnest money deposit. An earnest money deposit is a percentage of the offer and provided to the seller ahead of time as a show of good faith. It is written into the residential purchase agreement and typically delivered when the agreement is signed. Use an addendum to modify or add to the agreement. An addendum is often included with a residential purchase agreement to add to or amend any terms and conditions, while leaving the rest of the original agreement intact. It can also detail a contingency which allows either party to opt out of the contract if certain terms are not met. If you're in need of an official Washington, D.C. residential purchase agreement, you can get started by clicking the link right here. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more videos that will help simplify the legal process for everything ranging from buying or selling a house to making a will.